Legislation is back from recess. Next up, General Lady from Tumuning Senator Taitigui, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope everybody had a nice lunch. So, Mr. Speaker, I now would like to place Bill 185-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Economic Investment, Military Buildup, Regional Relations, Technology, Regulatory Affairs, Justice, Election, and Retirement to the third reading file, and I would like to speak on it.
You want to read the title, ma'am?
Yes, sir. And the title is An Act to Amend 3110, Chapter 3, Title 3, Guam Code Annotated, as enacted by Public Law 38-32, relative to adjusting voter time of registration and the term of appointment for registration clerks. To the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on it.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, today we are considering Bill 185-38 as amended. I want to begin by recognizing the Guam Election Commission, its Executive Director, Maria Pangilinan, and of course the staff, the hardworking staff, the registration clerks, and especially, and of course, my favorite person, Tom San Augustine, who has been very helpful in moving these bills forward and trying to get it in a timely manner so that we can have all these bills done before an election year. That's very hopeful. There might be one more later on in January, but we'll see. Anyways, and I'd like to thank those who worked essentially to keeping our election process fair, accessible, modern, transparent, and efficient, and responsive to the needs of our people. Earlier this term, we passed Public Law 38-32, which updated the appointment process for registration clerks and set their appointment periods for 45 days before a general election. Since then, the Commission has shared important feedback that 45 days is longer than necessary given the centralized voter registration system, online registration, and motor voter process now in place. Bill number 185-38 responds directly to that feedback. It shortens the appointment period to 21 days before an election, not just general elections. This change reflects operational realities, gives the Commission flexibility for special election and plebiscites, and keeps our laws practical and efficient. The Commission also adopted a technical amendment to 3 GCA 3104, striking 10 and replacing it with 15 days. With this amendment, registration's deadlines will be consistent. Volunteer, online, and voter registration will close 21 days before an election, while district registrations at mayor's offices and the Guam Election Commission will close 15 days prior to the election. Questions about the effectiveness of registration clerks, the need for data on their contributions, and the ongoing challenges of low voter turnout were also raised during the public hearing on the bill. The Commission has committed to providing that data, and we have encouraged them to explore measures to increase participation, including the possibility of same-day registration at the Guam Election Commission main office, with, of course, with the safeguards in place. Colleagues, Bill 185-38, as amended, is a practical step forward. It aligns our statutes with modern registration practices, strengthens consistency across deadlines, and supports the Commission in managing elections effectively, all without fiscal impact to the government of Guam. That's always nice to hear. I respectfully ask for the support in passing this measure to keep our election laws responsive, effective, and most especially fair. Sijus Masi.
On the bill, Bill 185. Any senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill, General Lady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you. The original bill is changing our statute, one of the laws that was overridden by the legislature to limit registration times in the districts and the term of appointment for registration clerks to, instead of cutting them off at 45 days prior to the election, it will now cut them off 21 days prior to the election. So this is, to me, an advancement of allowing them to continue to register people for a longer period of time. So that's good. I think the longer that we can extend registration, the better. That's what should be our goal. But the bill is amended in committee pursuant to the request of the Election Commission to add a completely separate section, which is 3104, and to amend 3104, which looks like it goes the other way. Instead of 10 days prior to the election, the registration rolls are closed. This would make it 15 days prior to the election, the registration rolls are closed. And the author of the bill said that this is for districts, out in the districts only, where GEC had asked to cut off registration in the districts a little earlier because in previous bills because they wanted more time to look at those district registrations in office and to ensure that they were proper. But if the author would yield, just nothing in here says this is restricted to the district registrations. And I don't have I don't have anything else in front of us that shows us that this is only for district registrations. If she could yield on that question.
Author, you willing to yield on that question?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question, because I too believe that it's important to allow enough timeline for people to register, considering we have had a low voter turnout. But the reason, as far as the districts are concerned, this is what I was told by Guam Election Commission. They're doing everything possible to allow longer period of time, as I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks. However, the timeline was extended a little bit more because of the motor voter registration, as well as, okay, let me pull that up, motor voter registration, which is very difficult. And let me, hold on 1 second, please. Okay. Okay, so amended by striking 10 to replacing it 15 days. That's the section that we were talking about to ensure consistency across the registration deadlines. With this amendment, the volunteer online and motor voter registration would be a close 21 days before the election, while district registration at the mayor's office and the Guam Election Commission was close to 15 days. So this is trying to be consistent, but I don't believe that they put the district in here. In other words, having people coming directly to the office to be able to vote is in the bill, and they have yet to do that. This is something we talked about during the public hearing to, ask them to, because we really want to encourage as many voters as we can. But the cutoff time for them on the outside, the districts, like the motor vehicle, the mayor's office, those areas which they can sign up to register, that needs to close a little bit sooner, only because they need that time to make sure these are all legitimate voters that have been registered. So it does take a little bit more time. I know I didn't really answer it. I hope I did. I think to say no, it's not included in here. This is something that they're looking into. I hope that answers the question. I think it's whether they're able to go to Guam Election Commission and register sooner, closer to an election than what we're allowing here. If that's the question, then no, it's not in the legislation.
Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Again, not necessarily, because the statute says only times of registration, period. 15 days prior to any election, the registration rolls shall be closed and no further affidavits of registration shall be accepted by the commission. I think we had intended, the GEC says this was asked for in another bill, but we took it out. And I think we took it out because we didn't want them to shorten the period of registration for their in-office. And this, again, like, it doesn't say here that this is the time for out of office. There's another provision that was passed by override of Bill 54 that says for those out in the districts, time registration is open until 15 days prior to an election. So I just don't want to be cutting off the in-office registration by this section where we are changing it from 10 to 15 days. To me, that's the opposite of the direction we want to go. If this is limited to districts, then maybe, because that's what was done by override of another bill. But I think, again, if this is for the in-office, then we should be expanding it. We should not be restricting it. So I would,
If I may do a point of information, just if I may, to get more to the question at hand, the Guam Election Commission's testimony on 3 GCA 3104, times of registration 10 to 15 days prior to election, the registration rules shall be closed and no further affidavits of registration shall be accepted by the commission. That's exactly what we're doing here. So this section was included in Bill 54-38, but was, of course, omitted into the Public Law 38-32. And I think what we're trying to do is the amendment would standardize all voter registration closer to the deadline of 15 days as well. That's what was put in by the commission as well, the reason why we are taking it to 15 days. Okay, thank you. That's my point of information, just additional information as it's coming in.
Thank you.
so again, if I can't confirm that this is going to, this sounds like then it isn't and is intended to affect in-office voter registration at the Election Commission and reduce it from 10 days prior to an election to, you got to get in there 15 days prior to an election. So I'm going to object to that part and actually make a motion to delete it, like we did from the last bill that had this in it. Just because I don't want to restrict the time for registration. I think it's a good thing that we're having voters come in and register and want to vote, and we should continue to encourage that. And I want to commend the Guam Election Commission. They've actually been able to handle it up to now, and we've reduced a lot of the burden on them through the other laws that were passed by override. So I'm hoping that they can keep up with this persons wishing to register up to 10 days prior to the election. So I would move that Section 3104, which is Section 2 of the bill, be deleted.
That's your amendment to delete. On page 2, lines 9 through 12. Senator Talai?
Do you have an amended bill? I have the markup copy, but not a clean copy, and is that on the markup copy, it's wrong. So there's 3104, and then it goes into 3110, and then it goes back to 3104. So if I could, yeah, thank
Why
you.
don't we take a 1 minute recess so you can get you the correct copy? Okay, 1 minute recess.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Speaker. To delete lines 7 through 12,
Okay, back
section
from
2.
recess.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Speaker, to delete lines 7 through 12, section 2 of the bill.
Okay,
That would make the bill consistent with the original bill,
Okay.
as the public hearing was held on.
on the amendment to delete from, on page 2, lines 7 through 12, starting with section 2 and ending with commission. Okay? On that, General Lady from Tumuning, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have to respectfully object to the amendment, proffered amendment. And you know, this has been worked with the Guam Election Commission to be consistent with all the other laws. Now, this would be consistent by placing this number in here. The 15-day deadline ensures the commission has sufficient time to process new voter registrations, update voter rolls, and verify eligibility for ballots are printed and precinct lists are finalized. That's why they need that additional timeline. It also aligns with the district registration period, which closes at the same 15-day marker, preventing confusion between registration types like districts, online, and motor voter. During Bill 190-38 COR hearing, Maria Pangilinan reiterated the same request to correct the inconsistencies in the update. Each election manual by changing any reference to a 10-day registration cutoff to 15. She emphasized that these changes are not a new policy, but rather a technical correction, ensuring alignment with the Guam Code Annotate and maintaining accuracy between the election manual and the statutory law. So I have to respectfully object. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. On the Tulahi amendment to delete lines 7 through 12 on page 2, any other senator wishing to speak? Any other senator wishing to speak? No other senator? Senator Tulahi, would you like to be able to close on you?
Yes, again, I think in previous law, we had made a cutoff for the registration clerks of 45 days. And apparently in error, because this bill now wants to correct that from 45 to 21. I think we will be making an error of policy to shorten, again, the time for registration. Now, this is not the motor vehicle or the online registration. This is, from what I can tell, the in-office registration at the Guam Election Commission for people to walk in and register 10 days before an election. We're going to cut that off and say they have to come in 15 days prior. And I think we have equipped the Guam Election Commission to be able to handle this for many, many years. They've been doing it. This has been the standard, and I would like for them to continue that, to have walk-in registrations at their office, even though we've cut off the online, the motor vehicle, and the district registration to much earlier time periods, that in their office, they will be taking registrations up to 10 days. So I ask for my colleagues' support on this amendment to delete this section and leave it as is, leave the law as is for the upcoming election.
Thank you. There is an amendment to delete section 2 of the bill that is found on page 2, lines 7 through 12. There has been an objection to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to delete section 2 of the bill, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion fails. Senator Tulahi, you still have the floor, ma'am. Thank you. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Senator Taitigui, you can close, ma'am.
Sidusmasi, Mr. Speaker. And I just ask my colleagues for their support. We've been working very hard with the Guam Election Commission. I'd also like to recognize my staff at the office in working on committee reports and market meetings with regards to this, because it's been basically all hands on deck. We didn't want to make a mistake. We wanted to make sure there was fairness and then stay consistent throughout all the measures. I have two other measures coming up that we are trying to stay on that path. So other than that, I kindly ask for everyone's support in this bill. And at this time, Mr. Speaker, if I may, I'd like to move that bill, or should I? Okay, now, right. Move Bill 185-38 as amended by the committee to the voting file.
On the motion to move the bill 185-38 COR as amended by the committee to the third reading file. Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Senator Taitigui, you still have the floor. Bill 189. Senator Taitigui, you still have the floor.
I'm still trying to be kind of techie. I apologize. Trying to get my computer up. Okay. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, at this time, I'd like to place Bill number 189-38 COR, which is an act to repeal and reenact Chapter 3, Title 6, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations relative to updating the Guam Election Commission campaign contributions and expenditures rules and forms to the third reading file, and I would like to speak on it.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise today to speak on Bill 189-38 COR legislation that was introduced to ensure our island's election systems remain transparent, accountable, and fair. What you're seeing in this quite big bill is several things, and I'll try and go through them so that I know 60 pages is quite a bit, but the measure represents the legislature's formal adoption of the Guam Election Commission update, Guam Election Commission's update campaign contributions and expenditures, rules and forms, which is long overdue, modernizing that it will bring our reporting and compliance process into alignment with both current law and the realities of the modern campaigning. The purpose of this bill is straightforward but significant. It fulfills our legislature's responsibility under 5 GCA 9303 to review and approve agency rules adopted under the Administrative Adjudication Law. These updates, approved by the Guam Election Commission, the Attorney General, and the Governor, replace outdated regulations that have not been substantially revised in decades. They implement the requirements of Public Law 38-18, which moved Guam to a quarterly campaign reporting system, and they ensured that the law now functions clearly, consistently, and with modern accountability standards. It also, by updating these rules, we modernized campaign finance administration through electronic filing, improve accuracy and transparency, and make reports more accessible to the public. Just as important, these updates provide structured procedures for correcting honest mistakes, so that candidates, especially new or grassroots candidates, are not unfairly penalized for small clerical errors. One concern raised during the public hearing was that reporting can be intimidating for first-time or volunteers who run campaigns. I shared that concern with the Guam Election Commission, and I want to note that under this bill, the Guam Election Commission will conduct candidate seminars, publish training materials, and issue advisory opinions to help candidates understand their obligations. These steps make compliance easier and ensures that everyone who wishes to serve the people of Guam has an equal opportunity to do so without being discouraged by administrative complexities. At this core, this bill is about strengthening the public trust in our election, trust that every candidate is held to the same rules and every dollar contributed and spent is reported openly, and trust that those reports are reviewed fairly and efficiently by the Guam Election Commission. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I ask for your support in Bill 189-38, and I'm standing here for any questions that you may have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Let's take a 1-minute recess. Legislature is back from recess. On the bill 189-38 COR, any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Jonia, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. So I rise in support of the bill to make the rules consistent with the new laws on election campaign contribution. And if the author would yield to just clarify, there was discussion at the public hearing regarding exhibits that they wanted to be attached that were not attached to the bill, and these are now attached to the bill as amended by the committee. And if you could just tell the public what those exhibits are. And are these the same forms that we've already used in the last filing period?
Would you like to yield?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for that question. These forms are basically everything from financial statements, to what they call the, the organizational reports that have been put in here. Expenditures reports that are here as well, and containing contributions, which is quite extensive. They've added more leeway when usually you have to do an attachment. If you have more contributions been given to you and you have to spell it out, they've added more to that. A dissolution report has also been put into play, which is Exhibit C. So these are the forms that are placed into the bill that has been revised to reflect the current law.
Can I answer your question?
I'm sorry, if the author would yield again, if you could please just read the title. So we have an organizational report.
We have election, okay, let me start from the beginning on the top. Okay. Okay, the first one we have is the campaign organizational report, which is the party organization and committee. So this is the This identifies your campaign as the individual candidate and who the treasurer is, who will be. That's the first one. And where you're going to be placing your funding, what financial institute. So that's the first one, your organization.
Organization report,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So there's A, B, C, D, right? 4?
Right.
Okay.
And then, of course, with that organizational report, you have the expenditure report. And these are all a report for what you've spent on signs, food, literature, everything from newspaper articles. So that is on page 19 of the bill. Of course, if you notice too, it's a little bit different on the affirmation and signature of this, the treasurer, or if, as you know, you can be your own treasurer too as well. You're allowed that authority. They've changed the notary a bit. And then you go further down. The next one you're going to see is again, the contributions and expenditure report by itself. It's on page 29. By the way, the numbering, just FYI, the numbering on these reports is not correct because it's supposed to be total pages of around 60 pages, but this is, the numbering is different. So I'll be making a technical correction for legal to make those comply to the numbering, the correct numbering. So but I'm just reading it the way you have it in front of you. So you have your expenditure report, and then there's the last one here that's called dissolution report.
I only find 3. Find more than 3. ABC.
And that's the last one on the list. And this is when you end your campaign. You've closed the account, your bank account, and you've exceeded all the expenditures.
All right, so that's A, B, and C. That's not
C.
A, B, C, and D. So there's only 3 exhibits attached.
Right. Exhibit C is the last one that we just talked about.
So organizational report, campaign contributions and expenditures, and then the dissolution report,
Yes,
which
3.
is brand new.
Right.
Is that, if the author would yield, is the campaign contribution report the same one that they have already put into place that they are requiring people to use in the last reporting cycle?
Yes, it does look the same. Yes, it is the same. With just minor technical changes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because during the public hearing, there was discussion of these attachments, and they are now attached, and I wanted to make very, very clear what those are, that those are going to be what part of what we are adopting in the rules and regs, even though some of them have already been put into place. Okay, and I haven't done a thorough review, but I'm going to trust that their council has, the Attorney General has, the Governor has, and hopefully our council as well, that these rules are consistent with the laws that are also put into place, and that these forms are consistent with the rules and the laws. So I have no objection to this bill, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentleman from Mipan, you recognize, sir.
Mr. Speaker, and buenas, bendiciones to the people of Guam. Thank you for watching our session this morning. Just wanted to rise in support of the bill, but also to just thank the Guam Election Commission for their hard work during the previous elections, and of course the one that's coming up. And just remind my colleagues to give this bill, which I'm assuming is going to soon be law, a good look-see, because there's schedule of fines in there for different issues and different violations. And if I'm not mistaken, I think currently they're not able to issue fines because this isn't in the law yet. So once this passes, they'll have that ability, I believe, to enforce a lot of these rules and regs with the appropriate response through a fine or other type of punishment should the rules be broken. So again, I also want to commend the committee chairs, the vice chair of this committee, a bunch of election-related bills have been proffered and passed and even overridden by the body, and I think there's a couple more coming your way. So just very humble to be part of the committee and also to be able to kind of accommodate, within reason, some of the requests from the Guam Election Commission so that they're able better to manage the resources that they have and execute, obviously, the very important elections for the people of Guam. That being said, if you're out there, and I said this in the public hearing for this bill, if you're contemplating throwing your hat or throwing your zori into the political ring, please do. Please do. We need more grassroots candidates and more people that our people can relate to so that they can come out to the polls. As you know, we have a record number of registered voters, but the problem is vast majority of them are not coming out to cast their ballot. And I think it's because we need more quality candidates on these ballots that they're casting their votes on. And so, again, I encourage the grassroots people out there, if you want to run for office, I'm willing to help. We need help in here. Sidus Masi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. On the bill. On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators? Senator Taitagu, you can close, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the questions that were asked. And most especially, I want to thank the Guam Election Commission, the Executive Director, Maria Pangolin, and her staff, and her team of very professional and diligent individuals at the Guam Election Commission. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not think, especially that day we had this public hearing, I was not able to make the public hearing, and my good speaker, I chose a great vice chair for my committee, Senator Barnett, who actually held the public hearing. I greatly appreciate him taking over as the vice chair for elections. So I appreciate his hard work and his thoughtfulness in the questions he asked during that public hearing was very helpful moving forward. So thank you so much. At this time, I respectfully ask my colleagues for their support of the passage of Bill 18938 COR and move it to the third reading file for voting.
On the motion to send Bill 180.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion first before moving it to the third reading. I apologize. I just wanted to clarify something that you point out to me earlier. And I'd like to, I don't know if it's a motion, but just say it straight out that I'd like the legal and the clerks to make the corrections on any numbering for any technical corrections needed for the bill. If I could make that motion to.
On that motion, that's to be able to correct, if you notice on the attachments, it has like page 16 of 48 to page 42 of 48. That really has no bearing on the bill, so it could be confusing. So it's basically to remove that in the back of the bill, the attachments to the bill. Okay, so you understand why that motion is being made? To make sure that confusion is taken care of. Okay, on that motion, no objections, ordered.
And at this time, I make a motion to place Bill 189-38 COR to the voting file.
On that motion, to send Bill 189-38 COR as amended by the committee to third reading. No objections, so ordered. Ma'am, you're still up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just taking a little breathing room here. Okay. And at this time, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I'd like to place Bill 190-38 COR as amended by the committee, which is an act to add a new Chapter 5 to Title 6 of Guam Code of the Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations relative to adopting the updated Guam election manual pursuant to Chapter 9, Title 5 Guam Code annotated to the second reading file, to the third reading file, and I would like to speak on it.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, As the prime sponsor of Bill 190-38 COR, I introduce this measure on behalf of the Guam Election Commission pursuant to the Administrative Adjudication Act. This bill adopts the Commission's updated election manual. A lot of people don't realize they had a manual, but this is one thing they've also updated too. So, and this updated elected manual has our governing rules, modernization and clarifying election procedures to reflect statutory challenges and lessons learned since 2015. The updated manual advances transparency, accountability, and accessibility. It standardizes forms and it reconciles procedures, also inventories, and establishes clear chain of custody requirements. And it creates an administrative complaints process. So issues are documented and addressed. It elevates accessibility by setting out a dedicated, quote, accessible voting process, ensuring voters with disabilities receive timely assistance consistent with best practices. It also modernizes early and absentee voting by clarifying spoiled ballot handling, vote center operations, and absentee ballot deadlines, so lines move faster, records are cleaner, and results are more audible. The bill is administrative and procedural in nature. Consistent with Chapter 9 of Title V Guam Code Annotated, the election manual was reviewed and approved by the Attorney General and Imaga Hagan Guahan and carries no fiscal impact exceeding the $500,000 threshold under the AAA. Guam Election Commission testimony was overwhelming supportive in that the committee incorporates several technical amendments to ensure consistency with Guam law. This include adjusting voter registration deadline to 15 days for elections, extending the grace period for district registration to 5 days, clarifying online voter registration for those with Guam driver's license or IDs, extending candidate filing periods for certain offices to 160 days before the general election, and aligning provisional ballot counting with Public Law 38-32's 15-day requirement. Looking ahead, the Guam Election Commission has committed to implementing electronic poll books by 2026, replacing paper rosters, and launching an island-wide voter education campaign to ensure smooth transition. These forward-looking improvements will further strengthen election integrity and public confidence. Colleagues, our election belongs to the people. By adopting this updated manual, we make them clearer, more accessible, and more secure. This measure honors the process, strengthens accountability, and ensures every eligible voter can participate with confidence. That being said, colleagues, I respectfully urge your support for Bill 190-38 COR as amended. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. On the bill, 190-38 COR, any senator wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill, 190-38 COR, any senator? Gentlelady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Yes, if I could follow up on one of the things said, and that is that this is going to allow more accessibility to voters for to see campaign reports. Is that correct? If the author would yield, how is that going to occur?
How, Arthur, would you yield to the question?
I know.
Okay, can you repeat that
Can
again?
you
I'm
repeat
sorry,
the
I was in the
question,
middle of
It's
something.
been said in these slew of bills that these rules and regs, and then these guidelines consistent with the rules and regs, which are consistent with the new laws, are all going to increase voter access to campaign contribution reports. And how is that going to occur?
If I may, Mr. Speaker, I'd be glad to answer that question the best I can. With regards to all the changes that were made in the manual, as well as the GAR, the bill that we heard previously before this bill, it allows certain ability for us to post things online because, as you know, the GAR has not been updated in many years. So it allows us more accessibility to websites, placing things on the website and allowing more information that was not allowed before or not given the authority to do because it was so strict in nature to put these things on the website so the public can view it themselves. So I do know that's some of the changes that were made.
All right, so they will be able to put those on the website?
Yes.
Do we know when that they might begin to do that? Did they
You want to
testify
answer
to
that
that?
question?
I don't know when they'll be able to do it. I'm hoping as soon as this bill becomes law, all the bills become law, that they would be able to do it right away.
All right. Jesus Mossy to the author for yielding. And so there's just one more thing. So this is a, what's it called? The guidelines book manual, the election manual. This is pretty much supposed to be written in lay terms for everybody to use and for us to follow as candidates or treasurers, all of that. But so there's a part in here that's relevant to the bills that we talked about previously. If you look on page 18 of this manual, or it says 18, but I think the numbers have to be corrected again. So on the bottom, it says page 18. It talked about district registrars. And then it talks about times for registration. And it says district registration shall begin 21 days prior to an election and shall continue until 15 days prior to an election. But if you look at, unless I'm reading it wrong, the previous bill that we just discussed says the district registration clerks shall serve from appointment until midnight on the day that is 21 days before the next election. So that's when they end, is 21 days before the election. But this guideline says the manual says they are going to begin registering people 21 days prior to an election. So I'm not sure. I want someone to review that and make sure we are consistent. And again, this is, you can tell it was written in hopes of the bills passing because all of those things are also marked according to these new bills. The 15 days, changing from 10 to 15 days for in-office voting is very clear on page 13 that this is going to apply as well to the in-office voting of the Guam Election Commission. That no longer will be 10 days, it will be 15 days prior to the election. They're going to cut it off. I don't really see why we need to do that. I can understand all their logic about the online ones. They had to review more. The district ones, they have to bring them in and then review them. So they wanted additional time. But the ones that are actually happening in their office, yeah, I'm not sure again why we're cutting that date. But I think this, yeah, I would just ask that this be reviewed. Now, this also went through the AAA process. Is that correct? Yes, it says, well, is this, what were these, was this manual? Like submitted as rules pursuant to the AAA?
Point of information, just for that, yes, it is, through the AAA process.
All right, so it's supposed to be reviewed. Again, I'm curious how they could review that if the law had not been changed yet. how they could allow in this manual to go through the whole AAA process with these new timelines that had not yet been adopted by law. We haven't even adopted them yet today. I don't know. I'm just, when it comes to elections, I really want to make sure we're not creating any changes that creates confusion for the public, that we are not creating any big changes such as cutting off registration times that makes it less convenient for the public. And I just want to ensure that I, of course, want to help them in all the work that they're doing to update their manual if it has to come through us. I want to assist in that, but I don't want it to be, you know, our legislative error that we're cutting off time periods. So those are my only real concerns. Otherwise, of course, I support the work of the Guam Election Commission. I want to help them, but I also think, first and foremost, we have funded and staffed the Guam Election Commission to make it convenient for the voters, and that's what we should continue to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let's take a 1-minute recess. I hate to say it, but Senator Talai brings up maybe a legal point that we may have to address before we move forward. So let's take a 1-minute recess. Back from recess. Okay, Senator Talai is done. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Bill 190-38 COR. Pardon me? Did you? Yeah. Your time was up.
Was the senator going to yield? Because
Were you going to yield to the question?
the same inconsistency on page.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Yes,
right.
yes, okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I do. I got word after looking at both areas that she was talking about, the good senator was talking about. One is referring to the registration, on registration. And the other one that I was able to see what she was talking about is a registrar, those who do the registrar. So it is a different timeline for both of them. So I was able to concur with the Guam Election Commission on that short break, thank you. And they too feel that, it's two different things and that they still comply.
Thank you. You still have time.
All right, thank you. I don't mean to be a stickler about this, but again, if you look on page 16, on line 9, it says, the Guam Election Commission may appoint volunteer registrars anytime prior to election to serve a term beginning at their appointment date up to 21 days prior to an election. That's when it's going to end. These are volunteer registrars. And then line 30, they're going to cease again 21 days prior to the election. Those are volunteer registrars. So, and I guess district registrars are only going to begin 21 days prior. I thought, I understand that by Bill 189, we're ending them 15 days prior instead of 10. We're going to end them earlier, but the 21 days for district registration, and even it says voter registration on page 13, voter registration at the main office. During district voter registration, 21 days prior to any election, voter registration at GEC's main office as well as the village mayor's office will be open 8 p.m. And the last day to register is 15 days prior. All right. Okay. This is. I guess. I just hope this doesn't cut the time. It seems to significantly cut the time for district registration, for in-house voter registration again. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. On the bill, gentleman from Telephone, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to share brief remarks regarding Bill 190. Through this bill, the Guam Election Commission puts forward policies and procedures which will be critical to guiding the decision-making process of GEC officials while supporting voter registration, pre-election day preparations by candidates, absentee voting, election day and post-election day operations, and election forms and supplies. The bill fulfills the final step, Mr. Speaker, in the process required by the administrative adjudication law for the adoption of administrative rules and regulations, which is the adoption of the GEC manual either by default or passage of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that based on the record of GEC's compliance to the administrative adjudication law, the GEC's approval of the proposed election manual during its Board of Commissioners meeting on April 14th, 2025, nearly 8 months ago, addressed the broader national discussion regarding election integrity. Specifically, GEC Commissioner Benny Pianalo from Barrigada moved to accept the updates to the election manual, subject to including the requirements to registration and absentee ballots imposed by President Donald Trump's executive order preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections, which was seconded by Commissioner Tony Gumatao of PD. The motion was unanimously approved. For the benefit of those following this discussion on Bill 190, Executive Order 14248 issued by President Donald Trump on March 25, 2025, requires the Secretary of War to update the federal postcard application pursuant to the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, 52 U.S.C. 20301, to require documentary proof of United States citizenship and proof of eligibility to vote in elections in the state in which the voter is attempting to vote. Additionally, the executive order requires the United States Attorney General to take all necessary action to enforce applicable federal law and to hold states and territories accountable if they violate such policies by including absentee or mail-in ballots received after Election Day in the final tabulation of votes for the appointment of presidential electors and the election of members of the United States Senate and to the United States House of Representatives, to which we would vote for a Guam delegate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to share my observations regarding Bill 190 and appreciate the GEC's continued efforts to align its policies and practices with President Trump's prioritization of election-focused protections now and into the foreseeable future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill, gentleman from Ipan, sir, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and just speak on the bill, which basically is going to allow for the printing of the election manual. And I'm not sure the timeline, but if the author would yield, like how soon after the passage would this thing be printed and available for the general public to review?
Would the author yield to the question?
Yes, I have no problem. Thank you for that question. And I can't tell you because until this bill passes, and everything is in order, then I'm sure they're going to do it as soon as possible. I'm hoping they'll have it. That's why we were trying to get these bills done before an election year. So coming January, all this documentation would be out, and people who are looking at running, the time now is in January to decide. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question, sir?
Mr. Speaker. Yeah, so this is basically a how-to election manual. So if you go through this manual, it's got all kinds of information about the roles of the executive director of the Guam Election Commission, the roles, duties, responsibilities of the commissioners who sit on the GEC, as well as the duties of the registrars. And it also outlines some of the processes. For example, on Election Day, and anyone who votes is familiar with this, they announce your name after you present your ID. Once it's certified that the voter's name appears on the roster, the precinct clerk shall announce the name of the person who is next in line to vote. And they do that, then they use that straight edge ruler, and the precinct clerk crosses out the voter's name and data on the original voter signature roster with a red ink ballpoint pen. This is making me malago to vote right now. And then there's also information about, for example, people who are interested in running for office. You could view under the candidates section all of the qualifications for the different offices. So, for example, governor, lieutenant governor. I think most people know this, but maybe some don't. You must be an eligible voter, must have been for 5 consecutive years immediately preceding the election, a citizen of the United States, and a bona fide resident of Guam. Listen up, we need more gubernatorial candidates. You must be at least 30 years of age at the time of taking office. Must maintain official residence in Guam during, this is interesting too, because it actually reads, must maintain his official residence in Guam during his incumbency. Must not have been convicted of a felony and must not have been convicted of a misdemeanor involving criminal sexual conduct or a crime of moral turpitude. And then, for senators, it's basically the same thing except for the age. You must be at least 25 years old to run for senator. And I learned something new today. Mayors and vice mayor, the qualifications, one of them, you must be at least 21 years of age. So if you're 21 years old out there, that's one of the qualifications to run for mayor and vice mayor. And so this manual, like I said, it's a how-to. It also lays out the different processes and what denotes an absentee vote, how to handle these absentee ballots. And so if you really want to take a deep dive into the election processes, this is basically the How to Election Bible. And it's good information to know because if you're armed with this information and you go out there to vote, whether you're a candidate or, part of a candidate's team, a staffer of an elected official, or, most importantly, the average Jose or Josefa Cruz out there, if you're armed with this information, you can keep an eye out and make sure that everything is on the up and up. And so thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to just kind of go over what the bill does and just some of the content. It's a great read. Honestly, we need people to read more. So hopefully this is a good read here. And then another great read, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you're aware of this, but June 2025, they finalized and posted on the Guam Election Commission website what they call the GEC comparative analysis. This is a fun one. So my dear people of Guam, you could access this on the website. I think you could even view the physical hard copies at the GEC office over there in Timoning. But this is where you can find out how your Godzu did in each of the villages compared to the other Godzus. And it breaks it down by, precinct. And so you can look at, for example, who finished first in what village, who needs help in these villages. And it's kind of a lot of interesting information. And some of it's actually pretty surprising, considering what we think we know versus what you see in the black and white. And so, si Diyos masi again, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill. On the bill. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators? Senator Tidiway, you can close, man.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was able to get a response from the Guam Election Commission because it was asked of me twice, how soon will this be able to come out? And once the bill is passed, boom, it's out the next day on the website. So it will be available right when the bill passes, or the governor signs it into law. So let's all hope she does, because we're coming into an election year. We want to put everything in place. We want to make sure everything is fair and transparent, and fix what was not done since 2015. That's quite a bit of time, to not be able to adjust to today's abilities, which gives a faster time to assist the Guam Election Commission. So financially, they're not spending money on things they don't have to, or be redundant in some ways too as well. So at this time, Mr. Speaker, I humbly ask my colleagues for their support for this bill as I make a motion to send this bill to the third reading file, Bill 193-38 COR, as amended to the third reading file.
On the motion to send Bill 190-38 COR as amended by the committee to the third reading. Any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Salas Matsanari, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place Bill 192-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Health and Veterans Affairs. It is an act to amend subsection 67100, subsection 67101, subsection 67103, and subsection 67107, and to repeal subsection 67107.1 of Chapter 67, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the appointment of the Veterans Affairs Officer and members of the Guam Veterans Commission, the powers and duties of the Veterans Affairs Officer, the composition and operations of the Guam Veterans Commission, and the definition of a veteran, to the third reading file, and asked to speak on the legislation.
You can proceed, ma'am.
Colleagues, I rise today to respectfully ask for your support on Bill 192-38 COR. It is a bill written by veterans and for veterans, shaped through collaboration and built on the belief that Guam's veterans deserve to be heard and represented. This has been a long journey for me personally. As a daughter of a veteran, I understand both the pride and the challenges that come with military service. And I want to begin by acknowledging something openly and honestly. The Guam Office of Veterans Affairs has faced serious problems for many years, long before I became the chairperson of the Committee on Veterans Affairs. These issues are not new. They did not begin with any one administrator or any one legislature. They have been allowed to persist across the years. But what is new is our commitment to fixing them. I'm committed, together with our veterans and with all of my colleagues, to bring the necessary changes to rebuild trust and to ensure accountability and transparency. And that is why this bill is so important. Our veterans have repeatedly told us that they want a stronger voice in decisions that affect their lives and their benefits. Today, they finally feel like their voices are being heard. And this is just the beginning. More improvements are coming. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the Veterans Working Group who stepped up and put in the time, effort, and dedication to write this legislation. Their commitment is the backbone of this bill, and they deserve to be recognized publicly. The Veterans Working Group consists of Roy Gamboa from Got Your 671, Vincent Santiago from the 3rd Marine Division Association Guam Chapter, Chris Turan, the American Legion Mid-Pacific Post 1, Joseph Yatar, Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 668, Timothy Puzan, the Guam U.S. Air Force Veterans, Rose Sharon Blend, 3rd Marine Division Association Guam Chapter, former Senator Tom Atta, American Legion Mid-Pacific Post 1, Lee Weber Sr., U.S. Navy League, and Nicholas Francisco, the Military Order of the Purple Heart. As referenced during the public hearing, this bill was built on collaboration and compromise and was primarily written by veterans for veterans. The amendments included in this measure were reviewed, vetted, and approved by these veterans because when a bill impacts them, their voices must lead the process. Colleagues, the unity behind this legislation is extraordinary. Bill 19238 has 14 out of 15 senators signed on as co-sponsors. That is a powerful bipartisan statement built not on politics, but on purpose. We have the opportunity today to take a meaningful step forward, not by ignoring the problems of the past, but by learning from them and correcting them. Our veterans have asked us to end division and move forward together because our veterans deserve better than division. So today, I respectfully ask, let us stand with our veterans. Let us honor their service, not with speeches, but with action. Let us deliver a structure that finally works for them. I humbly request for your support for the passage of Bill 19238 COR as amended by the committee. They have done their part. Now it is time for us to do ours. And again, I request to move this to the 3rd reading file. Situ Asmasi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, 192-38 COR, on the bill, any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Senator Perez, I see that you have an amendment, so would you like to start? Senator Perez, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise in support of this bill. I think we've heard many testimonies over the years on how the need of our veterans have been unmet, from health care to being denied any claims and not having any access to or having less accessibility to appeals. You know, I looked at the committee report and listened to the testimonies, and you know, it's clear that any impasse that has existed must be cleared, and a lot of the testimony provided would help with and the amendments that were made to the bill would hopefully help overcome this impasse. As the author mentioned, there has been divisions within this community, and through the changes in this bill provides, my hope is that we can overcome these divisions to make it right for our veterans. Guam has one of the highest rates of veterans in the United States, but our needs are still unmet. And with the changes that this bill provides, my hope is that we can, as a group, with a unified voice, overcome these challenges. So in looking at some of the recommendations, one of the recommendations was made by former Senator Tom Atta. And his concern with the veterans organizations was that they be duly licensed within Guam. And so he questioned the use of the or in current statute. And so that's what this amendment really is about, is to hopefully correct that oversight, because we want to be sure that any veterans organization that is is part of the commission has local knowledge and local understanding, and not just federal understanding, which is also important, but has roots here on Guam, that understands our unique needs. And so with this, I would like to proffer this amendment. Really, it's just about striking out the or and allowing the and to exist. So the organization is not only 501c3 registered, but also locally registered as a nonprofit. So I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Okay, there's an amendment. Well, you can actually find it on page 5, and more specifically on line 10. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, there is an objection to the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion on the amendment? Gentle lady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
In light of the objection, I would ask if the author of the amendment would yield to explain further the difference between the and or and why we are doing this. We are requiring instead of making it optional. Why is that?
Thank you, Senator Terlahi and Senator Perez.
Ma'am,
oh,
hang on.
sorry.
It was the author of the amendment that was the question was directed to, okay? The author of the amendment, would you yield to the question? Okay, give her time. Did you yield to the question?
Yes, I do. And I just thank you for that moment. I just wanted to find it within the committee report in which Senator Tom Adams mentions this use of and or. So he offered it as a technical amendment. And if I can just quote, approve veteran organizations. Previous public laws clearly required member organizations on the commission to be registered with Guam DRT as a bona fide nonprofit organization. At some point, the words and or were added. The words and or could be understood to mean that a local chapter of National Veteran Organization does not have to register with the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation as a 501c3 organization due to its affiliation with a national organization. In my research, I was unable to find any previous public laws that exempted local chapters of national veteran organizations from needing to register with the Guam DRT. I recommend that all veteran organizations wishing to join the commission be 501c3 nonprofit organizations registered with Guam DRT. Registration with Guam DRT aims to ensure accountability of nonprofit organizations. And so it really closes that loophole in regards to accountability. And I think that's prudent. So that's why I'm offering this amendment to be aligned with the testimony provided. Thank you.
Ma'am, does that answer your question?
Thank you. If I could ask the author of the bill if she would yield. I'm trying to see, during the public hearing, I thought it was, just trying to find out, that they recommended removal of the 501c3. Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that what Senator Ada recommended? Was,
Can you repeat the question?
I'm asking the author of the bill if she would yield that during that public hearing, I thought Senator Ada had testified that we should remove the second 501 or the 501c3. And in my version of the bill, that's not deleted, and just want to find out why and what is meant by the and or.
Would the author of the bill yield to the question?
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. Yes, I've been in constant communication with this Veterans Working Group, and although former Senator Ada is one of the members, the consensus within the Veterans Working Group is to leave this bill as amended and provided to them and vetted by them as is, as submitted and being debated right now on the floor. So any amendments that are going to be made or proffered, I'm going to object. Thank you.
Wow.
I guess, yeah, it's confusing because it's almost the opposite of what they testified at the hearing, where they said we should be mandating that these organizations who are going to be serving on this commission are locally registered nonprofit organizations. And with leaving the or in there allows them not to be, because it says they be locally registered or not. And so, and that's confusing. That was not what was testified at the hearing. And I believe anyway, so that's confusing. And I don't agree that we should not amend the bill if we can find things and come to a consensus as to what was really intended, what is best. So that's on the amendment, correct? Yeah. Yeah. Those are my thoughts on this amendment. I feel like if we're going to say or, they can be registered in the U.S., recognized under 501c3. To me, if you're going to register nonprofit on Guam, you also are going to do that. Or you're going to be exempt from one of these things.
Just so we can, it is actually to strike out or. It is now going to require that the organization be actually registered with revenue and tax.
Yes.
And
correct. Yeah, but there's an objection, so I'm trying to figure out,
Okay.
the basis of the objection is pretty much just because after the hearing, some people said, despite the testimony of the hearing, we shouldn't do that. But we also did not incorporate the change to strike out the 501c3 as recommended. But all right, this is very difficult because I'm not sure if what is the real intent? Is it to, I support the amendment because the amendment makes it very clear. We want them locally registered. There is no exception to that they're going to be locally registered nonprofit organizations who are going to serve on our local Veterans Commission and govern our local Guam Veterans Affairs Office, funded by the people of Guam. So I absolutely support that amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
thank you. On the amendment, Senator Borja, sir, gentleman from Barragata, you recognize.
Yeah, just a point of information or inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
It's on the amendment, so don't wait.
Yeah, on the amendment. So I guess, from the proffer of the amendment, is she trying to say that the organization or the organization that is going to be a part of this commission is registered as a Guam nonprofit and a national nonprofit? Because those are the difference. So the intent of this amendment, if I understand it correctly, because in the veteran community, and it's like this in other parts of the community in regards to nonprofit, is you can be a locally registered nonprofit, and then you can also be a separate nonprofit that is registered in the United States nationally, right? Like a national nonprofit organization. And I say this and I assume that that was the intent of the bill because there are many nationally, like I'm a part of a couple nationally, they're not local nonprofits or chapter of a local national nonprofit. So if you strike that out, what you're saying is that in order to be a part of this, you have to be a local nonprofit and a national nonprofit. Is that the intent of the amendment?
Would the author of the amendment yield to that question?
I will try. So in looking over the testimony by Senator Tamata, he mentions that the and/or could be understood to mean a local chapter of a national veteran organization does not have to register with the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation. So it would be to allow, yes, the amendment does require that they not only, if they're a national organization, to also register locally. So there's no surprises, I guess.
Then a point
Yeah.
of information then, Mr. Speaker, would be that all national, in order to raise money or do any financial transactions on Guam by law, because we just chartered a national veteran nonprofit on Guam, is you have to register as a local nonprofit. Like none of the banks will create an account unless you register with the with DRT.
Thank you. On the amendment, General Lady from Pago Bay, Ranking Member, you're recognized. On the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In reference to the retiring speaker and just wanting to look at what exists here on our island, we have like 30 plus veteran organizations here on Guam. A lot of those organizations have a relationship with organizations but are in the United States but are not under that jurisdiction. And you and I know that we've got the organizations that are registered with the government of Guam, but is not a part of the 501c because they're still going through the applications right now. If this amendment goes through, it would have to say that you don't, even if you're a part of a local chapter or a local organization here, if you're not affiliated with any of the veteran organizations as registered in the United States, then you cannot be a part of that. And I maybe ask for a minute break to see, because from what I know today, there's 30 plus veteran organizations. So literally you will cut out a lot of the organizations that are still existing today, that are not nationally, may not be nationally recognized. Can we take a minute break just to confirm that, please?
Okay, take a moment's recess. back from recess. Senator Paris, I think that, would you like to be able to speak on the
Sorry,
amendment?
yes. I would like to amend my amendment at this time. Is that possible?
Why don't you withdraw the amendment?
Okay.
And then, okay?
All right. Withdraw and then propose another,
Yes.
a new amendment? Okay.
Yes.
So at this time, I'd like to withdraw the amendment as proffered and then, yeah.
On the motion to withdraw the amendment, any objections? No objections to order? Go ahead, man.
All right. I'd like to proffer another amendment. If we can follow the handout, I could just, rather than having to print up a new one.
Sure.
Okay. So the amendment, I'll just read it and then describe what I'm crossing off. Or actually, maybe I should describe what I'm crossing off at this point. So where it says and or, so strike that all the way to is registered as a nonprofit organization within the United States. So that would be all struck through.
So you want to strike out and or is registered as a nonprofit organization with the United States and
Yes.
recognized as exempt under IRC 501c19, IRC 501(4), or IRC 501c3.
So the and recognizes still stays. So I'll just read it in its entirety.
Sure.
So to amend the bill to read, approve veteran organizations. Organizations to be represented on the Guam Veterans Commission pertaining to subsections 1 and 2 are required to be duly registered as a nonprofit organization with the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation in accordance with Title 18 of Guam Code annotated and recognized as exempt under IRC 501c19, IRC 501(4), IRC 501c3. The organization shall furnish the Guam Veterans Affairs Office, GOVA, a copy of the official documentation reflecting their nonprofit status, a current certificate of good standing, and a copy of the organization's bylaws. GOVA shall maintain a file of each organization represented on the commission and. So that's the entire amendment. And so really the purpose of this amendment is to, basically, Title 18 GCA states, the purpose, y legislatura finds that the people of Guam are generous contributors to charitable or other nonprofit organizations, but are usually unaware of disposition made of their contributions. The purpose is to require that all such organizations, except strictly religious ones, to make available to the public annual financial statements so the people of Guam can be made aware of the actual fiscal needs of these organizations and can thus govern themselves in their donations to such organizations accordingly. And so really the purpose is to ensure accountability of fundraising activities. So it protects those that are in the community that are supporting these organizations to ensure that the organizations are carrying out their mandates or their bylaws. And so it's really about increasing accountability of those that are organizations that are approved veteran organizations that are going to serve on a very important commission to represent the veterans of Guam and to attain the needs, to bridge the gap of the needs that need to be met. So really fiscal responsibility should be the foundation of, if one organization is fiscally responsible, that's a sign that they are also responsible to the needs of their members. So it's really part and parcel of what organizations are set to do.
So let's be very specific. What language here are you striking out?
So the language is and or is registered as a nonprofit organization within the United States. So it really addresses the question about, are we cutting out organizations because they are not registered as a national organization? So it answers that question. You just have to be registered with Guam, the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation, but also prove that your exemption, right? So you have to be an organization, a nonprofit, which is exempt under IRC, these internal revenue codes.
I just gotta warn you that there are nonprofit organizations on Guam that are not exempt under any of the IRCs that you want to keep in. If you do, what you're essentially doing is you're saying the same thing that you want to do. Is just the nomenclature, the verbiage that you want to be basically delete, but you still want to keep, still says the same thing. But you will in it, you still require these organizations, these local organizations, to have these national exemptions. Because not all nonprofit organizations in Guam have IRC exemptions. I'm not that. I understand.
Yeah, just give me 1 second if you don't mind.
Let me just take a 1 minute recess so
Thank
you can look it over again, okay? Legislature's back from recess. Senator Perez, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the author of the bill, as well as the chairperson of the commission for looking this section over and looking through the amendment. And I humbly am very grateful for their support in this. So just to reiterate the amendment, it's basically approve veteran organizations. Organizations to be represented on the Guam Veterans Commission pertaining to subsections 1 and 2 are required to be duly registered as a nonprofit organization of the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation in accordance with Title 18 of Guam Code annotated and recognized as exempt under IRC 501c19, IRC 5014, or IRC 501c3. The organization shall furnish the Guam Veterans Affairs Office, GOVA, a copy of the official documentation reflecting their nonprofit status, a current certificate of good standing, and a copy of the organization's bylaws. GOVA shall maintain a file of each organization represented on the commission. And so that's the amendment, and I appreciate the time to get clarification to do with Masi, and I ask for my colleagues' support. Again, it's to ensure that there's a fiscal accountability of organizations that are going to be on this very important commission to move forward in ensuring the needs of our veterans are met on island. To do with Masi.
Thank you. So the amendment will now strike out the words and/or is registered as a nonprofit organization within the United States. That's right. We're going back to that original language. Okay. Okay, so we all understand that. All right, on the amendment. On the amendment. Okay. Gentlelady from Agate, ma'am, you recognize.
Agate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Senator Perez, for the amendment. And after seeking clarification from the Veterans Commission Chair, who is also a member of the Veterans Working Group, in discussing how to go about this amendment, we came to the agreement that this would be appropriate. And if anything, when the Veterans Commission meets, hopefully this bill passes and is signed into law, they can work on any other changes that might be needed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is
And I withdraw my objection?
So you withdraw your objection. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. On the amendment. Gentleman from Barragata, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I get the intent, and I feel like, I want to object, or I think I'm going to object to the amendment, because what this does is really going to put us back where we started. When you look at some of the reasons why some of the nonprofits locally did not make it on the commission is because a lot of the technical terms within the law that required that implemented specific requirements for these veteran organizations to be a part of this commission. And adding this amendment, again, adds an additional requirement that I could say, like given most of the requirement to be in compliance with a lot of these, the IRS requirements to be exempt is going to add an additional burden, I think, a lot more bureaucracy, and just you're going to force them to go and get the status so that they could be a part of the commission. I think, if that's something we want to do, because, even just some of the messages that, the conversations I had, it was because we want more transparency with these organizations. And I feel that that should be a separate bill that we should require for all nonprofit organizations and not just veteran organizations. Because what we're saying now is if you want to be on the commission, you need to be registered with DRT and then also be IRS tax exempt based on the amendment that's being proffered. So I object to the amendment, Mr. Speaker, respectfully, and I ask for my colleagues to object to it as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Understood. On the amendment, gentleman from MIPAN, you're recognized. Then I'll get to you, ma'am. Gentleman from MIPAN.
Mr. Speaker.
Ma'am.
Oh, him first.
I'm sorry. I don't have the
Sorry,
glasses,
Mr.
so I
Speaker, I
don't
was
see you.
trying to
I
be
saw you
polite.
in the back. I'll get to you afterwards.
Well, I'm not going to object to the amendment, and I'm not even sure what amendment some of us have in front of us, because this amendment doesn't require any veterans nonprofit to jump through any hoops that other nonprofits don't have to jump through. You know what we hear from the veterans that I talk to is that they're concerned that there are veterans groups that are chartered in the states that are operating here locally without having registered as non-profits. And I think it's a very real concern, especially with this legislation, which, you know, we all support, and I'm pretty sure it's going to pass unanimously. But basically, this is going to allow only the locally registered nonprofit organizations to be able to participate in the Veterans Commission. And I think it makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. For the off-island veterans nonprofit organizations, whoever they might be, they should follow the law and register locally. I think it's really that simple. I don't think that this changes in any significant way the bill. All we're basically saying is if you're registered here locally on our island as a veteran nonprofit organization, then you can participate in the Guam Veterans Commission. I think it's very simple. And to those off-island veterans organizations, and I know there are some big ones, it's very easy. Just go register locally. That's it. And so thank you. And I'm very glad too, Mr. Speaker, that my colleagues were able to hash out this discussion and to come to an agreement on support of this amendment. And I just ask my colleagues to actually support it and to send a good message to the veterans that we want to support veterans groups that are registered here on Guam, regardless of whether or not they are in Guam or they come from off island. I think everybody should follow the same rules, Mr. Speaker, and so I definitely support the amendment. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, sir. On the amendment, General Lady, Ranking Member from Pago Bay, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, though I appreciate the intent of this amendment, I do understand the retiring speaker from Barragata and maybe even the complication of what this amendment will do. Yes, you can have and be a part of an off-island veteran organization and be a part of a Guam organization. But in this effort to go through a 501c19, to go through a 501(4) or an IRC 501c3, you literally have to take all the extra steps that are required through the federal guidelines. And as of today, we have even businesses and nonprofit organizations out there that have still not gotten even a 501c. And though a lot of other entities would like to see these nonprofits have it, I think we're just putting a lot more bureaucracy into these nonprofit organizations that are here with us today. For me personally, that saying goes, you serve, you deserve. I'm a mother of a veteran, an active military personnel, a grandmother of one who's in active duty, and a grandmother-in-law of one who served. And I'm telling you this, and being a part of the organization with the retiring speaker from Barragata, the gentleman from Barragata, there's a lot of red tape that has to go through this, and I really do have the concerns. I think that these organizations who have it in their heart to be a part of bringing veterans together to help further advocate for veteran welfare, veteran issues, veteran concerns, I think that's great. And I really don't want that type of group to be excluded from being a part of what we need to do here for GOVA. I mean, just to bring GOVA alive with their board, I think is a step in the right direction. But taking away from those organizations that exist here today because they're forced to be a part of this, it just makes it more difficult. So I'm going to respectfully not support this effort, this intent, though I support the measure of the bill as a whole. Sizos Masi.
Thank you. On the amendment, gentlelady from Tumuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, I know this bill has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I commend the author of the bill who's worked with the veterans nonstop, you know, even pulled back a bill just to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to put their 2 cents in and then some. Now, here we are in this juncture. We had a public hearing and some amendments were made. And this particular amendment, I was concerned, and I do want to ask again the author of the bill, the original bill, that if she can yield to a question, if she was able to speak with the group that will be overseeing this commission and get their blessing on this amendment.
Would the author of the bill yield to that question?
Actually, I spoke with one of the members who was on the Veterans Commission as well, and so we were just discussing this. We're still kind of discussing this, and I think I need to just go back to what I said at the very, very beginning regarding different amendments to this bill, because this bill, again, was vetted by the Veterans Working Group, and the amendments that were incorporated into the final version, which is in the Google Drive, is what they approved and vetted. And so when Senator Perez introduced this amendment, now it's kind of, you know, it's whipped this up into something that now I'm not completely comfortable with. So I would like to just stick with what was approved and what was vetted originally. So in terms of have I spoken with them again regarding these amendments? No.
Okay.
Other than with
Just
Mr.
one
Gamboa.
person.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does. And, you know, last thing we want to do is have, you know, more veterans knocking on our doors again saying that we did not comply to something that was agreed upon at the very beginning. However, if this is a mistake and it wasn't intended, and the group gets together, the commission gets together and sees that it is a mistake, then nothing stops the veterans from reaching out to the oversight chair of Veterans Affairs and making those changes. Not everything is perfect, not every bill is perfect, and we've come back to this body many a times to adjust to those situations where we missed something or we unintentionally did not want to hinder the movement and progress of something that was intended in the first place. So that being said, thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the record on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're very welcome. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? You want to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from the Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think this amendment is pretty critical. And I understand we don't want to depart from what may have been originally drafted, but original drafts can only be made better, I think. And that is part of our job, is to make sure that we try to do that. Because in all my experience, it's very hard to get it right the very first time. And this amendment just causes no harm unless it's our intent to allow organizations chartered in California as nonprofit organizations or registered there as nonprofit organizations to be on our Guam Veterans Commission and give mandates to a Guam Veterans Affairs office. And if we are as I thought it was very clearly intended, requiring them to be duly registered nonprofit organizations with the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation. This amendment does that so much clearer than the original language of the bill. In fact, I think we should just delete the rest of the sentence, because that seems to be what the hangup is, whether or not they have to comply with the 501c categories or other 501 categories or not. And I don't think we need to determine that here. I think it's enough if we require the Department of Revenue and Taxation to determine that they are a nonprofit according to Guam law, and whether they are in good nonprofit status, whether they are in good standing, and whether they filed their bylaws. So I think this is going to allow those existing members of the commission to continue or to get updated with their records so that they can be in good standing. And I think by deleting this language as recommended by this amendment, we are removing any question that non-local organizations are going to govern, and we are giving a huge power here to this commission, this new Veterans Commission, to govern. That's what they want. And in that, to me, comes a big responsibility as well, that your organization should be registered here. We should know who is registered as the officers. We should know what you are allowed to do or not do. We should be able to see accountings of your money if you are a nonprofit asking for money on Guam. So I think if there's any issues of whether they must or must not comply with 501, or whether they haven't got their 501 certificate yet is the problem, then I would make a floor amendment to amend this floor amendment to just delete the entire line. So to extend the deletion all the way to the end where it says 501c3. So to delete, in addition, the words "and recognizes as exempt under IRC, 501c, etc."
Okay. Why don't we dispose of the First Amendment, and then we can go to that. We'll see where that goes, and then
Well,
we can.
because some of the objections that we've heard are because they have to jump through the 501c3 hoop, as opposed to being a local nonprofit, as if there's some difference. And so I'm saying, well, let's just remove that point of contention and get down to the basics. Do we all agree that they need to be nonprofits registered on Guam or not? Or are we trying to bring in nonprofits registered in California? If we're trying to stick with nonprofits registered on Guam, yes. Yeah, I think
Your amendment will then further restrict it.
it would further release. They're no longer restricted. We're not requiring them to comply with the IRC exemptions. It would be rev and tax. So it's up to rev and tax whether they must or must not comply with these exemptions, because
But
that
what you're
seems to be
saying-
the objection.
But what you're saying is that they have to. Let me take a 1-minute recess. We'll talk about this. back from recess. Okay, there is an amendment to the amendment that would strike out the rest of the language so that what that amendment to the amendment will do was it'll make sure that it is a nonprofit organization registered with revenue and tax, and it doesn't necessarily have to have the exemptions. Okay, that's what this the amendment to the amendment would do. Senator Paris, you have on the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah, I rise in support of the amendment to the amendment. In discussing it with the chairperson, this is the direction that they're heading, is that they would like to have the different organizations registered on Guam. And I think by removing the federal requirements, although they are good, these are good requirements, it does lessen the hurdles in regards to organizations that want to serve on the Veterans Commission, the Guam Veterans Commission. You know, although there are some really good ones in here in regards to these agencies or these organizations must not be involved in political lobbying. That was one of the requirements for a 501c3. In the 501c19, this has to deal with tax exemptions for veterans. And so some of them include a membership requirement, which is pretty high, at least 75% have to be of the armed forces. So that's 50C19, and it pertains to armed forces. So I know it's striking out the requirements exemption, it strikes out the exemption for these different items. I think the direction in which the commission is moving in is that they want them to be locally registered. And so I think I want to support that. Otherwise, we would have to come back, I think, to make those changes. But I think that this is a good compromise for those that have argued against the amendment that, you know, we're striking out this additional requirement and just requiring the local registration. At least we get the accountability, right? The financial accountability that requires the reporting of the fundraising activities and how the money's being spent. I think at least we can have that in place. I think that's critical. So I rise in support of this amendment to the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. On the amendment as amended. On the amendment as amended. Any other senators wishing to speak? Gentleman from Ipan, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm very glad to hear that the chair of the Veterans Commission has shared with the members of the body, to include the author of the bill, that this is the direction they want to go to. I was trying to think of how to put it, you know, in my head and say it out, but really the gentlelady from Jotnya, I think, said it in its simplest form. Do we want to allow the veterans groups registered in California or Pennsylvania or Wyoming or North Dakota, Nebraska? Do we want them to be able to come here, run for this commission, and dictate to our local veterans? I don't think as a body, or I'll just speak for myself, I don't agree with that. But as a body, I think she made it even simpler when she said, do we want these nonprofit organizations to be registered in Guam? And I don't see why we would oppose that, especially since we've kind of loosened some of the parameters for these veteran nonprofit organizations that obviously there's some members who are concerned about veterans organizations who are registered in the States and not locally. But I think, you know, and this legislation is historic. I mean, what it seeks to do with the commission and what it seeks to do with the veterans groups being able to run for these, to be in these positions, to be appointed to these positions, it's a big deal. And I think that we have to be careful who we're going to allow to have a seat at the table. And this is not to say if you're a veterans group in the States that you're not allowed, not at all. It's just to say that if you're a veterans group, nonprofit org in the States and you're operating on Guam, then just go register at Department of Revenue and Taxation. I think it's very, very, very simple. And when you register at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, as I know some of the veterans had shared concerns that these groups who are not chartered on Guam are raising all kinds of money, and the local veterans have usually there's no reporting, there's no idea where the money's going. But we passed a law here in the previous legislature that requires and mandates these nonprofit organizations to report annually. And I think that's a great way to solve the problem. And the problem was the language allowed the veterans group from California to come here and boss the local veterans. But by amending this language, we're basically saying everybody's welcome, just make sure you register as a nonprofit on Guam in accordance with Title 18 of the Guam Code annotated. And so I know there's been some, I'm going to object, I'm not going to object, I'm going to object again, but I just really think that in the spirit of unity, as the author had said in her open, we are unified on this legislation. And I don't think any one person or any one bill should be out of reach for us to try and make better. And I think that's where we're coming from. The intent of the amendment is not mean-spirited. It's not meant to exclude anybody. It's only to reinforce that when we empower these veteran groups to put people on this commission and this historic piece of legislation, then we want to make sure that they're duly registered on Guam as a nonprofit in accordance with our laws. I don't think it's a crazy ask. I mean, definitely these veterans organizations that are registered in the States, we're talking about some of the biggest veterans organizations, like for example, the VFW, would be one that's chartered in the States. And they have the resources, I believe, to just register locally. So, I don't want to beat it to death, Mr. Speaker, but it's just, I think we have to get past this blockage of, the idea that, we own all the ideas. We have to come in here with an open mind and be willing to compromise, especially if it's a reasonable compromise. I mean, I don't think this is a poison pill. It doesn't kill the bill. And I think if you go out there and you talk to the veterans, even the ones who aren't in the groups, because not all these veterans are in an HMI or a Gotcha 671, I'm pretty sure they would agree that they want these groups to be registered locally. In fact, it's straight from the mouth of the chair of the Veterans Commission, who says that this is the direction they want to move in. I don't think it's revolutionary. I think it makes absolute sense. We require the same of all the other nonprofit organizations. So, por favor, Mr. Speaker, I just ask my colleagues to support the amendment. And I think in supporting the amendment, you definitely secure unanimous passage for the bill. Because if it comes down to it, Mr. Speaker, I feel like I could justify if I didn't support the bill, because it allowed for this opportunity for these off-island nonprofit organizations to come here and to, essentially put people on our commission and tell our local veterans. And so I just hope that this amendment can pass, Mr. Speaker. Sijos Wasi.
Thank you very much. On the amendment as amended, gentleman from Barragata, because it's been amended, so you can speak again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to clarify, because the issue at the beginning wasn't about requiring the organizations to be registered locally. I get that, because I'll tell you that the issue was, or if we're talking about transparency or wondering, we're all like, it's adding that extra red tape, which is the IRS exemption. So just to clarify, I was never in opposition of requiring. I agree that the local organizations that are embedded in our community, that have members of people that live in our community and led by people in our community, should be a part of this commission. And so I support the amendment to the amendment, because that I respect that intent, and I never objected to that. I objected to the fact that we were trying to say you needed to be registered, and then meet all these other compliance issues with the IRS, and that was the only issue I had. But I support this amendment, and I thank the proffer of the amendment to the amendment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Do you then withdraw your objection?
To the,
Because it's been amended.
no, yeah, I'll move to withdraw my objection with
Okay.
the amendment to the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you very much. Gentle lady, ranking member from Pago Bay.
Mr. Speaker, and I too will rise in support based on the amendment as proffered by the senator from Jonia, putting that amendment to this present amendment as proffered. I think it explains and gives the opportunity for those organizations here to be a part of that. So I support the amendment as amended. Thank you.
Are there any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment as amended? No other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Okay. I don't need to speak because everybody else says everything I wanted to say already, so. Okay. Did you want to close? You know, you're the original author of the amendment, and
Sorry, do we dispose of the amendment to the amendment?
why don't you close the amendment to the amendment, and then we'll.
Thank you. And I want to thank my colleagues for removing their objection based on this, and hope that we can all still move forward with confirming the intent of this bill and confirming that pretty much those organizations who have been dedicating their time over the years to this Veterans Commission are going to be able to continue. They are listed in the bill as to include but not limited to the American Legion, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and Vietnam Veterans of America. But in that section also, it says the officially chartered Guam chapters of these organizations, and of course, retirees associations of the different branches. So I look forward to this. It's again, huge shift that we're going to allow them governing authority of the Veterans Affairs Office. They want to do this. They are going to dedicate their time and volunteers to do this. This is, I just think, a protection mechanism, this section of the bill. So I hope this amendment just makes that better. And we are going to be relying on the Department of Revenue and Taxation, as always, to be our regulator of these nonprofits. Sijus Masi. Thank you.
You're very welcome. To the originator of the amendment, ma'am, you were wanting to close?
Just want to thank my colleagues for the lively debate and the willingness to work on the floor to strengthen the bill and to work with the Veterans Commission to ensure that there's accountability when it comes to those that are serving on this the commission. You know, it's really about protecting the interests, the public interest, protecting our veterans, and protecting the community to ensure that every dollar that's spent is going to go towards ensuring that we bridge the gap when it comes to the needs of our veterans. And so I thank my colleagues for their support in the amendment to the amendment, and I ask for their support in this amendment. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to dispose of, first off, the amendment to the amendment. Okay? Any objection to the amendment to the amendment? No objection, so ordered. Now the amendment as amended. The amendment as amended. Are there any objections? There is an objection to the amendment as amended. Therefore, all those in favor of the amendment as amended, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment passes. On the bill as amended. On the bill as amended. Gentleman from Barragata, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise in support of Bill number 192-38. The intent of this bill is to modernize and strengthen Guam's local system for overseeing our veteran services by clarifying leadership roles, formalizing stakeholder participation, and improving the governance and accountability. For too long, our veteran issues on Guam have been handled through structures that are outdated and unclear. This bill helps create a more organized system that can respond to local concerns, coordinate efforts, and advocate more effectively on behalf of our veterans. Mr. Speaker, after this bill was introduced, some of the common things that I've heard from some of the veterans is that they're assuming that this is, they're hoping that this fixes a lot of the VA bureaucracy, or they hope that this is going to make it better for their benefit, easier for their benefits. But I just want to make sure that this is although that hope is understandable, and it's one that I share, I want to make sure that we're honest with the veterans so that they know that this bill is not going to fix the federal VA system. It's not going to speed up claims or eliminate the challenges that veterans face every day. Those are federal responsibilities, and we cannot let Uncle Sam off the hook for those. What this bill will do is help Guam speak with one voice, gather input, and advocate more effectively so that when we raise concerns to Washington or to our congressmen, that they're organized, clear, and backed by a system that works. This is not about quick fixes, it's about capacity building. It strengthens local governance so that we can better support veterans here at home, even when the federal systems fall short. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I respectfully support Bill number 192, and I ask my colleagues to support this as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They're very welcome. On the bill, the gentleman from Talofofo, sir, you're recognized. On the bill as amended.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to speak in strong support of Bill 192 as amended. And I thank the author and Senator from Hoggett for continuing her work towards improving public services for our nation's military heroes. Mr. Speaker, I thank the chair and her Committee on Health and Veterans Affairs for incorporating my recommendations during the markup process for Bill 192. Now, based on the discussions we had during the bill's public hearing on October 16, 2025, and recognizing that the Guam Veterans Commission law does not sufficiently guide members with respect to expected duties and responsibilities, I put forward a short list of suggestions for the committee's consideration. And with the committee's approval, Bill 192 was amended, authorizing the Guam Veterans Commission to develop appropriate policies to address the concerns of all veterans. Recommend any legislation, including budgetary requirements, which may be necessary for the implementation, operation, and maintenance of the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs, develop and adopt internal rules and procedures to govern the conduct of the Commission, and to facilitate coordination with the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs, and submit a written report no later than May 1st of each year to the Governor and the Guam Legislature summarizing the Commission's activities, accomplishments, challenges, and plans to support the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. Mr. Speaker, action on Bill 192 could not have come at a more appropriate time. Recognizing that we just celebrated Veterans Day and Veterans Recognition Month, the bill is timely because of the information we all learned following the release just a couple of months ago of OPA report number 25-11, a performance audit of the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs Administrative Services. Mr. Speaker, among their audit findings, the OPA summarized that GOVA does not have the staffing capacity to plan or conduct GOVA-sponsored outreach activities regarding VA claims. This, coupled with the lengthy waiting period for a meeting with the VSR, has led to a growing reliance on the assistance of community-based and nonprofit organizations to fill in the gaps in GOVA services. And based on the observations of the OPA and citizen concerns, there may be an increased risk for fraud and abuse when claimants choose to go to community-based and nonprofit organizations that do not have qualified attorneys, agents, or representatives of VSOs, those veteran services organizations who are accredited, who are not accredited by the VA. For reference, VA accreditation ensures that advisors possess the necessary education, training, experience to guide veterans through the disability claims process and importantly, to act ethically. Through this bill, a new Guam Veterans Commission will be established with a clear mission, and that is to fight for and secure the resources they and their fellow veterans deserve, including federal VA benefits and local services across healthcare, housing, transportation, and education services. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to bring up one point as we were going through some of these, this iteration in these amendments, especially when we think about some of the congressionally chartered organizations. You know, I think of a few. The Marine Corps League, which my dad was a member of. He actually was buried in that red jacket, congressionally chartered. As we start to look down the road, as we know that we have at least 2 Marine Corps organizations on Guam, at some point, I'm sure when they ask for admittance to be a part of the commission, will it be 1? Will it be all 3? Or maybe emerging groups that we might see. As you know, Congress will mandate something, and at some point, this body or this government will have to somehow comply. I can't forget the Paralyzed Veterans of America, another congressionally chartered group. There's so many, Mr. Speaker, and I think that down the road, this is a great start in terms of what we are doing through Bill 192, and I'm hoping that we as a community can see that. Let's get this thing done. We will vote, and I'm pretty sure we're going to all vote in favor of it, and very excited for all of the veterans of Guam. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, and with profound gratitude for the service and sacrifice of our nation's heroes, today and always, I stand in full support of Bill 192. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill as amended, Gentle Lady, Ranking Member from Pago Bay, ma'am, you're recognized.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, I promise I'll make it fast. I know it's already after 5 p.m. I just want to take this time to rise in support of this bill number 192-38 COR, as its proposed legislation truly seeks to clarify and define the powers and duties of the Veteran Affairs Office and to amend the composition of the Guam Veterans Commission. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the oversight chairperson on this committee, the good senator from Hogad, has been very, very diligent working with all, if the majority, if not all, the veterans organizations out there. She's taken the time to listen to a lot of the issues and concerns, has been able to literally make a lot of the necessary amendments into this legislation to make it more accommodating for the greater all of the veterans out there. So I want to thank her for those efforts. I also want to say that we do have veterans in this August body, and we want to take the time to thank all the veterans, not just in this August body, but those who have served and continue to serve for the freedoms that we live today. I support this effort. I think it's a start to show the community of Guam that we really do care, and that working on this Veterans Commission and working with GOVA shows that we all want to start working together for the greater good of our Guam veterans. So, Sizos Masi for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of this measure. Sana Masi.
You're very welcome. On the bill as amended. On the bill as amended. Are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill as amended? On the bill as amended. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill as amended? Last call. Gentle Lady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the work of those who drafted this bill and submitted it to the legislature, and who continue to provide input, and for all of those who have served on this Veterans Commission, past and present. And not every organization or individual actually concurs with this bill. There was one representative of the VFW organization who opposed it. And that person had been a past chairman of the commission. And I can see, I have huge respect for all of those who put in the work, and that the commission is going to work out for itself what else they need to work out. It's going to be a huge endeavor, as they know, even based on existing law and what the mandates are for the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. The mandates are so long. And even if they followed every one of those mandates, we would still not be giving veterans everything that they are entitled to under federal law. And we need the efforts of the federal VA and Congress to ensure that we make it as convenient for them as possible and readily available. However, this bill is such a huge change for what we're going to be doing going forward if it's passed. First of all, it changes what is currently a classified employee as the head of the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs and makes it an unclassified employee. At the hearing, I questioned why they want to do that when on many other organizations or, departments, we're trying to make sure we get rid of unclassified employees and put in classified merit system-based employees. This is a huge shift, especially because currently GOVA, the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs, is directly reporting to the governor. They're under the office of the governor. And they should be able to get any of their wishes granted. But because the veterans are so frustrated that that has not happened, they want this massive change. So they want to change from an classified to an unclassified, because now the Veterans Commission, by design of this law, this bill, is going to be governing the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. Not the governor, not anyone else, but the commission is not going to be advisory anymore. It's going to be governing. It's going to be deciding who will be the director of the Guam office. It's going to be deciding which priorities will be made for that Guam office in its list of long list of mandates. And so this is really a big thing, because dictating the priorities to me is what I really like about this bill, that the veterans themselves, this commission, is going to be able to dictate the priorities of that office, especially, and these might change over time because we've given them a long list and they have a limited budget, and if they have to prioritize, so I think it's best that these are the people who are going to be doing that prioritization based on the needs of the community as they know it, because these are very active members of our community who serve on this Veterans Commission. Another big change that I questioned at the public hearing is that instead of these veterans organizations having the last say as to who will represent, for example, the Military Order of the Purple Heart organization, they are giving their nominees or suggestions to the governor, and will be waiting for the governor to make an appointment to the Veterans Commission. That's another big shift. I think it's lesser autonomy for these nonprofit organizations compared to what they have now, but that is what they recommended. And they, I guess, believe that doing that is going to get the governor directly involved in their commission. She's going to be personally involved in who serves on the commission, and hopefully they will get further cooperation of the governor's office by her direct involvement in appointing now the members of that commission. I think the same goes for removal of commission members, but to me, those are the biggest changes. There was only one amendment that I wanted to proffer if the body would allow me, and that is the meetings now are mandated by this bill the commission shall meet at least once every quarter, period. And some of the testimony said that's not enough based on the large mandate that they have. I agree. But it at least makes it mandatory so they don't get lost without any meetings. They're going to be meeting every quarter. I think to further that intent, that we can put into statute, as is done with other agencies, an actual time and date for these meetings so that if they lose their chair, they can still meet and vote for a new chair. It's kind of mandated by law that they are going to meet. And you've seen this in different departments, organizations where they have governing boards where they're mandated to meet, then they're able to come in and take care of it. So this was on page 7 of the bill. If you look at lines 14, they talk about the meetings, B4 of section 67107. So my recommendation is to add, after shall meet at least once every quarter, to add at 3:00 p.m. on the last Friday of the quarter at the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs office or as otherwise announced by the Veterans Affairs officer. So that's their default meeting time and place, and that should hopefully, if there's, they talked about it at the hearing, that they're no longer, because of finances, they might not publish anymore in the paper, they might do it online. Well, I'm not sure all veterans are online. And if for them to meet, if we can put it into law, hopefully they can see that and get that. And I know this would be a big ask, and I can give this in writing to the clerks, but I'm just suggesting this, that we help them this way.
I appreciate the suggestion, ma'am. However, there is a standing rule that if there's no amendment prior to the start
Yes,
of the okay?
I'm asking, notwithstanding the rules, if just to be allowed to put that not in writing.
Well, I'm caught in a dilemma here because we need to be able to vacate this room in due time. Let me take a 1-minute recess so that we can discuss with the group, okay? Legislation back from recess. Senator Lai. there is a rule that we basically wouldn't accept any of the amendments, any amendments that were not previously proffered to the bill. And okay, I appreciate that you're not notwithstanding, but I'm going to have to rule that amendment out of order.
And the motion,
On the,
notwithstanding the rules,
I'm going to have to rule it out of order.
out of order?
Thank you very much. On the bill. On the bill.
Well, see, Masi, it's unfortunate that there's an objection to that motion because it's only intended as to put in a time and place as a default meeting so that what has happened in the past, it's not going to happen no matter who's on the commission, as these people will change no matter who's the Veterans Affairs Director, as that will change, no matter who's the governor, no matter who are senators, so that they will have a default time and meeting place in case they get off track, like we have seen in the past. And we're all hoping that they're not going to, but agencies that have this default meeting time and place, they appreciate that when it's set by law, because that helps them, and they can always add additional meetings, they can always make another announcement if they want to do it at a different place, but it helps them in making sure everybody knows. And in this case, particularly when we are dealing now with an open government law that's been amended to not require publishing in the usual places that veterans might have seen the notices, I'm very concerned that they might not get notices of these meetings. And I think this would be a big boost. This was actually one of the things mentioned at the public hearing that we could do to save them. But since that's been objected to by the author of the bill and by the speaker, we'll move forward. But again, so I support this bill. I'm still very concerned about how, in reality, it might limit the autonomy of these veterans organizations that have been so far very autonomous and efficient and responsible. But to move forward on their united plans and to move forward on the mandates in that Veterans Affairs Office, I believe change is good. And we're going to look forward to this and hope that this structural change, this governance by veterans of that office is going to be able to help it. And I want to thank the director, the current director, for all of his efforts so far with his limited resources.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill as amended. Okay, on the bill as amended. Ma'am, Senator, would you like to be able to close?
I would just like to say thank you to the Veterans Working Group, and I'd like to once again name who they are. Roy Gamboa from Got Your 671, Vincent Santiago, the 3rd Marine Division Association Guam Chapter, Chris Turan from the American Legion Mid-Pacific Post 1, Joseph Yatar from the Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 668, Timothy Puzan, Guam U.S. Air Force Veterans, Rose Bland, 3rd Marine Division Association Guam Chapter, Tom Atta, American Legion Mid-Pacific Post 1, Lee Weber Sr., U.S. Navy League, Nicholas DeFrancisco, the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and all those other veterans that appeared during the public hearing to provide their input. Again, this is just the beginning. There's more change to come, and I appreciate the input from my colleagues, and I once again urge for their vote to pass Bill 192. And again, I move for it to be placed in the voting file. Thank you.
On the motion to place Bill 192-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amended on the floor, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Colleagues, that's going to be the bills for today. We're going to go back on the motion, returning regular session Thursday, but there's going to be an announcement by the Vice Speaker. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move to go back to motions.
Okay, on that, sir.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Speaker. I move to append resolution number 120-38 COR to the session journal.
On that motion? No objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to resolve into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of conducting the state funeral services for the late Honorable Antonio Acosta Calvo, former Commissioner of JIGO, and that it be conducted in its formal manner.
On that motion,
Mr. Speaker, before we act on that motion, can I make another motion prior to resolving in the Committee of the Whole? That is to consider to move Bill 173, which has been reported out of the committee, onto the session agenda. It is regarding the lease of the Coban in Manilao, which is very time sensitive because their lease expires, the current lease. This reauthorizes the lease.
can I go ahead and let's resolve that, and I promise I will get back to that one, okay? So, resolve into the Committee of the Whole?
Again,
ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I move to resolve into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of conducting the state funeral services for the late Honorable Antonio Acosta Calvo, former Commissioner of JIGO, and it be conducted in its formal manner.
Okay, prior to the motion on the resolving the Committee of the Whole, well, we're going to go ahead and resolve, but before we resolve, I'm going to go ahead and address that motion. Okay? All right?
All right,
So-
Mr. Speaker.
All right, so ordered. Before I recess, ma'am, you want to do your motion now? You want to do your motion? I will permit your motion to occur even after we get out of the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So my motion is to place Bill 173-38 COR. It is an act to authorize renewal of the lease of a portion of Lot 2288-111 Manilao and the Manilao Coban to the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 668, by amending 681103 of Chapter 68, Title I, Guam Code annotated, and to place the version of that bill as amended by the committee onto the second reading.
On that motion, any objections? That will be at the bottom of the second reading. All right? So ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess. We're going to resolve into Committee of the Whole. We will recess until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Okay? So please, let's be here at that time. Okay? Thank you very much.